everyone, welcome to Squirrel Brain Stories. Just a little reminder right here at the beginning, we're going to be talking about heavy topics. Please make sure to take care of yourself, reach out to a friend if this triggers something in you. Make sure you drink your water, take your meds, and just maybe if you're not in a good place, today is not the day for this, come back to us later.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Squirrel Brain Stories. I'm Angela, and I'm here with my co-host, Buck, my husband.
That's me. We're going to do kind of a what do we call it last time?
Retrospective.
Retrospective, yeah. So we're going to do 11, 12, 13 in this episode, and then the next episode we'll do 14, 15, and 16. Just kind of going over the discussions you had with Adria, and kind of pulling some little higher level analysis of it, really, I guess is what it is. Kind of asking you some other questions and filling in any plot holes that may have appeared or things we might have forgotten to reference. So, I mean, in general, that's your whole story, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's in the can. So how do you feel about it?
I feel good.
Yeah? Is it like lightening your load, kind of?
Yeah, it's like an accomplishment, and now I just feel better about the whole thing. I got it out, and it's like a relief.
Well, I look at this in a couple of ways. So even if nobody but our close friends and family or whatever watch this, you have all of it documented, and you can use it to write a book.
Yeah.
You just give it to some ghostwriter who's like a fancy writer.
Yeah.
And they can write a whole book for you.
I know.
Or, you can use ChatGPT or
something. And I feel like it's helped me heal and get over a lot of the things that I had blocked away that I was trying to forget about instead of processing. And after, this whole thing started in the summer, and I felt like I was having a mental breakdown or a midlife crisis. I don't know. It was just so traumatic, everything and all the emotions. And I got a counselor at the very beginning. It was 2 weeks into the podcast, and I had already reached out to a counselor, and we did maybe 4 sessions or so. And she's like, I don't think you really have anything that needs to be dealt with. So let's just put our meetings on pause. And if something flares up again, then we'll meet back up.
You're the only one that turns off your counselors, because I think this is the second time this has happened.
Yes.
Where you've been talking to a counselor and they're like, I think you're cured. And the funny thing about that is we were just watching something, and I think it might have been something I saw on TikTok, and it was somebody was interviewing all these psychologists after a conference, and they asked them specifically, how many patients have you cured? And every one of them is kind of like, none. Haven't cured anyone yet. And I think it was kind of to talk about how it's a pseudoscience and it's bullcrap anyway. And, it's just a way to make you feel good about yourself and dump on people and spend money, I guess. But you, for some reason, after a few sessions, they're like, you're healed. Hallelujah. It's a miracle.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how you do that. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of that's the other thing I was going to ask you is, do you feel like you've learned, you've gone through a lot in the last 5 or 6 years as far as evaluating what happened and kind of learning some of the terms and some of the ways to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Has this process been that way? Are you still kind of learning things that you're like, oh, that's what that's from, or that's why I do that, or that's where this comes from?
Yeah, especially ways that I was trained in the cult, of acceptable behavior, and things that, my role as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, and seeing how that carried over to my second marriage, where that was the mechanism that gave him the control and made me vulnerable to him and the abuses, because I was conditioned for that. So there was no red flags.
Yeah. And that's Very good segue. That's exactly what I wanted to delve into. This is how that worked, because it's not just when we talk about cults and we talk about, the manipulative doctrine that can take place in some religions, right? It's not just about that experience and being in the cult. It's about the conditioning that takes place that manifests itself in the rest of your life.
Yeah, because
Right.
when you live in a compound, which are what most, if it's a compound, it's probably a cult.
Yeah.
If you have more than 3 families in the same home, there's
It's
probably
a compound.
some sketchy, doctrine going on. But oh shit.
You live in a compound. Squirrel brain.
Yes. Where was I going?
We're talking about how the doctrine that you learn in a cult and how it's passed on after you leave.
Yeah. So if you're trained to, just think one way and you're living in that situation for, 10 plus years or even 5 years, it's way different than you're going to a church once a week or maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times a week if you have like a reading Bible club or something, but it's not like living actually 24/7 in a place, because there, you can, if you go to church every Sunday, you can pretend, you can act like that righteous person. But when you live in a compound, there's no, you can't really get away with acting.
That's a good point. I will preface this by saying you don't have to live in a compound for this to affect you, because some religions are more ingrained the colloquialism that I grew up with is that you live the faith, and it's not, you don't just go to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
It's permeates everything.
Yeah.
And some religions and some churches and some congregations are different. Some of them, it's just Sunday. A lot of Catholics just go to church on Sunday, and a lot of people in every religion just go to church on Sunday and just show up.
Yeah.
But some are like, oh, they're doing something on Monday, they're doing something on Wednesday, they're doing something on Friday, they're doing something on Sunday. They're very ingrained in it. It's completely in their life. And, other religions across the ocean, there's no escaping it. It's 100% of your life is your religion. So we should preface about we don't have to say you have to live in a compound.
No.
But it's a surefire way of, like, if you live in a compound, it's
happening.
It's everywhere. Yeah, it's happening. So one of the things that I kind of was researching about kind of the way Scripture and the doctrine that you learned was able to manipulate you and create this kind of subservient, obedient person. It's something I call the lowest common denominator of doctrine. And so the premise is that, religious doctrine isn't necessarily a perfect reflection of God's will. But what it is really is a simplification of a sociological framework. Well, what that means in like layman's terms is like, it's a way to allow everyone to understand complex doctrine, whether you're a philosopher or a peasant, like from the smartest person down to the lowliest, person, by getting rid of nuance and like complexity and just saying, okay, we have biological trends, and then they're used in some ways as weapons or laws. So what I'm specifically talking about in this case is the men lead, women follow doctrine, which you see in most congregations and most religions. Most, by 90% plus, is that the men lead and the women follow. There's a few Lutheran congregations who have like a female pastor or whatever that is kind of permeating the culture at this point. And there's probably a few matriarchal religions out there, a lot of pagan stuff, with the earth witches and things like that. Those are usually female-led. Matriarchs are the head of it, but generally speaking, 98% plus are all men-led. And that comes, when you're looking at a lot of these religions, they're pulling from the same base, right? It's all Old Testament, whether you're talking about Judaism, Christianity, even Islam, you're pulling from the Old Testament. And so if you look at it through that framework, it's men lead, women follow. And I think if you look at the scriptures, we're going to put some of these scriptures on the screen that they used in the cult. And probably one of the most popular ones, I'm sifting through paper, so ignore me. Yeah.
I have an idea.
What?
How about you tell them how you know so much about the Bible?
What do you mean?
Your background.
Okay, so I grew up Mormon, and so I went on a 2-year mission to Holland. And so, Mormons are one of those religions where they live the religion, typically. Most of the people there, you go to church on Sunday, but it's 3 hours. And then you also have like youth stuff that you do during the week. And you have a home teaching thing where you're going out with your dad and you're teaching like old ladies, the elder ladies in the congregation, and you're making sure they're doing okay. And then, the fathers are typically in have some job. There's no paid clergy in the Mormon church. Mm-hmm. So, the bishop of the ward, the bishop of the congregation, the one that's in charge, is just some Joe Schmo that got called to that. And he's also a mechanic, or he's also a lawyer or something, so it's the whole congregation runs it, and you have a job. And so, when you're a kid, when I was in high school, I did seminary in the morning, and that's like an hour and a half class every single day before I went to school. Wow. Of learning scripture. So it wasn't like you, where I did like 12 hours a day of Bible study. But that's where kind of my knowledge of this comes in. So.
And you were what were you?
And as far as like leadership?
Yeah.
I was a second counselor, which is like the third from the head of the. I did that for a little while, and I was young men's president for a while. That's like somebody who's in charge of the Boy Scout program. Although now they don't do Boy Scouts; it's some other youth program. Okay. And then I was a Sunday school teacher, and I've been, you kind of jump around over the years, doing everything. So, wow. So yeah, I've done a lot of that stuff. But one of the scriptures that I think they use a lot, and I've heard this before, it's used a little softer in the Mormon religion, so it's not as hardlined, and it's especially as time goes on, like most religions and most social groups, mm-hmm. even in general social groups, they get modernized a little more, right? So this is less like you stay home now, especially when I was a kid, in the 1970s or whatever, it was still pretty much mostly the women stayed home and raised the children and the men worked. Yeah. That was how it was. I would say by the time Gen X started getting to be adults and it became apparent that one income, half of my children were raised with a mother in the house, and the other half of the time, both of us worked. But I had enough of an income when my children were small that their moms both stayed home, both when they were small. Mm-hmm. So I never had to deal with the stuff you had to deal with, like daycares and all that stuff. Never did that. So, and I think that's generally where it is. Like they don't say women, my mom always stayed home. My mom never had a job while I was growing up. Mm-hmm. And I think that was pretty typical. But it was less like you have to. Like at any point, any woman could get a job. And I don't think it was, at least in my perspective, It was never looked down upon. Really. Okay. Maybe in the 1950s it would have been, 1960s. By the time the 80s and 90s rolled around, the Mormon church was modernized enough that they didn't really look down upon that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if your kids were being raised by daycare, maybe. But if your kids were in school and you wanted to go and be a nurse, like no one would ever say anything about it or look down on you or whatever. So in your case, they seem to use Ephesians 5:22-24 on you guys a lot, which is, we'll put it on the screen. But wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so that the wives be to their own husbands in everything. And then there's also 1 Peter 3:1, likewise, you wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word, they also may, without the word, be won by the conversation of the wives. And then Colossians 3:18, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as is fit to the Lord. So it's clear through this that they used that. And you mentioned being trained to submit in the cult. Are these verses what they used to kind of hammer that home?
I don't remember what verses specifically they used, but they would teach us in Bible studies that we were to be submissive and obedient, and we had to listen to our husbands, and so we were all pretty much trained that.
And it wasn't even that you had to submit; it was that his authority was absolute, right? Even if it was violent or illegal, like you just were not to question.
Yes, you could not question anything.
So were there instances where you witnessed other women either questioning their men especially with regards to not something arbitrary, but something that's clearly not in keeping with Christianity, like something dishonest, something illegal? I mean,
yeah, like lying to immigration.
Yeah. Well, I know you have a lot of instances when we start talking about Juan, for sure.
Well, no, but with the first one too, the prearranged husband. No, he lied to immigration during his citizenship interview, and because he lied, I had no other option but to lie too, and say that he had no. Because they ask you a question like if you ever had any partake in smuggling or human trafficking or anything like that, someone entering the country illegally. And he said no, which I knew that he did, but because he said no, I had to say no too. Because what's going to happen when I get back home if I say, yes, I know he has.
Yeah, so they framed it as like, you got to back me up, like no snitching on your husband. Right. Yeah. I mean, that was literally like, did you view it as it was more a sin against God and not just a good disagreement with your husband? Like if you went against him, you were breaking the law.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you would get in big trouble.
Yeah.
And everyone would be talking about you and looking at you, judging you, and you're being rebellious. And because I was already conditioned to act a certain way and to be obedient and submissive and all of the things, and listening to my husband, and so everything was already structured inside of me of the way God wants me to be. And when you're indoctrinated for so many years in this way of life, well, that's how you begin to live.
Yeah.
It's not a conscientious effort. It's just how you do things now.
You came pre-trained.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Peach House, when you went back to the Peach House, and I think Adrian might have mentioned that, but like when Memo assigned you the same room, that was I mean.
Yeah, that was pretty.
That was a fuck you, right? I mean, how did
That's how I saw it. Yeah, and he was trying to, punish me. Because everyone thought that it was evil, and it was a sin to divorce my prearranged husband.
Yeah. Did they look at it like this was like he had some divine authority and he had chosen you two? So, what is that? There's a scripture that says, what is, God joins, let man not separate, or something like that. Was it like that? Like he had this divine authority, or was it just an inconvenience? It wasn't really thought of as that kind of thing.
I don't know. I think it was definitely thought of as an inconvenience because, it makes the guy look bad, for one, and then the leader look bad because he couldn't control the outcome.
Right.
And then also there may be a part of them that they're afraid because, people usually know that when someone gets out of a bad situation and they come to realization, usually there's a little bit of retaliation that comes, either, there's someone calling the cops to report some crime, that they were, too afraid to speak up of, and so there's usually a lot of backlash after people get out of bad situations. So I don't know if there was some fear of what might get out,
Because they no longer had a hold on you.
Yeah. So what did I see? What did I know? What could I say?
It is interesting that they took in any non-illegals in the first place. That seems like a dangerous kind of thing to do. By bringing,
people off
a little
street.
white girl from Portland in there, mixed with all these illegals, you're the one that isn't going to get deported. You're the one that if you do go to the cops at some point and do expose what's going on in there, you don't have to worry about reprisal from the government.
Yeah.
You're the only one, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they took you in. It must have been just they thought they got you young enough that they could condition you. And they did. I mean, for a while.
Yeah.
That was kind of
and not only illegal immigrants, that was the main people they would take in, but then people off the streets, like who
had no resources or money.
Yeah, they'd bring in people off the streets, and there was all these kids, running around in this compound. I mean, how could that be safe for anyone?
I don't know. Yeah. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the sparkplug incident, because it was it was one of the first times where you kind of were like, I could see you kind of raise your eyebrow, like, because you were questioning, and this is the place where he took a spark plug, broke the ceramic into pieces, and then you could just throw it against a window and it would shatter the window.
Yeah.
Right. And so he went around breaking people's windows. But initially he broke your first husband's window. Now, when you looked at that, do you think he was because at the time you saw it as like protection. Oh, he was defending you and he was sticking up for you by sticking it to this asshole or whatever.
Yeah.
But now that you've got to think about it, do you think he was kind of training you to see what happens when people cross him? That he has
I think it was a scare tactic and intimidation.
Yeah.
Like he's not afraid to do anything.
Yeah.
And
I'm crazy.
And he gets his way, he thinks he's untouchable.
Yeah.
Which he has been up to this point. So I mean, he's not wrong.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, he's paid $100,000 in bails, but
yeah,
he's been untouchable so far, besides lost money.
Yeah, I mean, and he continued this kind of psychological warfare with your first husband too, a lot with the oil and then riding on his car and all this stuff. He was really just pretty ruthless about it.
Yeah.
I mean, they both kind of were, I guess. Did you look at it as like, oh, they're fighting over me? Or was it like, he's protecting me? How did you view it at the time? Because, I mean, you'd never really had someone stand up for you before.
No.
So it was you probably didn't even recognize what it looks like.
It felt like he was protecting me. And like he was fighting for me.
Yeah. The interesting thing that, I heard one time, way back when I was first dating, when I was in college or whatever, they used to say, there was a saying that said, if you want to know how you're going to be treated at their worst, watch how they treat other people. And boy, I mean, I didn't really learn that lesson super well. But boy, like, I mean, one simple breakdown of that is like, if you want to know if a woman is going to treat you like crap later on, watch how she treats the staff, like the waiters and people at restaurants or whatever.
Okay.
If she's a real bitch to them, well, just wait till you're on the bad side. And it also goes that way when you're divorced. Like, imagine that person and see how they treat their family, see how they treat their enemies, not just their friends that you know and like, but their enemies. Because that can be you one day. And there's a 50% chance it will be, right? In this day and age with the divorce rates.
Yeah.
So just beware, because when they say, I would never do that to you, I would never use the kids against you. Hold on, buddy. So it's interesting when you look at that now, it's like, boy, I mean, yeah, that kind of seems to be a truth that I've witnessed. And this as well. As soon as they turned on you or you turned on them, whatever the perspective is, they really went at it, huh?
Yeah.
Like,
that was crazy.
I want to go to the whole Mexico part. So you're in Mexico and there's domestic terrorism, all kinds of crazy stuff going on down there, right? And it was one thing after another, just never really letting up.
Yeah.
At what point did you realize that you had unwittingly become an accomplice in attempted murder? Not to murder. Because when you were sent in the taxi cab to go get gasoline, I assume you didn't question it. You may have thought, oh, there's probably a lot of things in the house, around the house that use gasoline, like lawnmowers.
No, there's no lawnmowers.
Was there anything that used gasoline in the house?
If they torched land to burn
so
weeds.
sometimes they did like controlled burns or whatever to burn the weeds or whatever. And you had vehicles. Uh-huh. So did you question it? Did you?
No.
But you never would have imagined at that point that he was going to try to light. I mean, so you're running through. I want you to put yourself back in that place where you're running through the backfield and you're jumping over the barbed wire fence, and he's telling you what's going on. Now he's giving you a very sanitized, I'm innocent bullshit version of it.
No, he didn't say he was innocent. He said that he wanted to burn the bags of clothes that she stole from his store. And so he was trying to throw the Molotov cocktail through the window of her house, because that's where she had her store display.
So he's just trying to burn the whole house down. Do you think he was really trying to just burn the house and he wasn't trying to burn her? Like really in your heart? Do you think he just threw it at her because he was so pissed at her, and he just told you that so you wouldn't think of him as a psycho?
I mean, he is pretty psycho, so I think he probably did really try to kill her.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he told the girls, my daughters, multiple times after the divorce that he was going to kill me.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. I'm just saying, at what point did you figure out that he really was lying? It wasn't about clothes. I mean, it may have started about clothes, but the act itself, he was throwing a Molotov cocktail at his ex-wife to kill her.
Yeah.
Because he was pissed. He lost control and he threw it at her. I mean, at what point did you figure that out? Did you take him at his word most of the time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. I didn't really know for sure. All I knew was that at that point I realized how dangerous he really was.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if it was malicious enough that he was actually trying to kill her, or if he just wanted to burn the stuff down. But still, if she was, even if she wasn't outside brushing her teeth and that's how she got lit on fire, even if she was inside the house, well, what if she was asleep when the stuff lit fire? She would have died anyways.
Right.
No, I think she was visible, and I think he threw it close enough to her where it would get on her.
Splattering.
Because I mean, if your house is this big of a target and you're standing 20 feet from it, there's really no reason why you're not going to be able to hit it, and it's going to splatter.
Yeah.
But I think that she was way closer than what he was saying.
But the house didn't burn down, did it?
No.
Did any of the house? Did it go through the window?
I don't know.
Did any of her clothes get burned? It was just her?
Yeah.
Then then one of two things is going on there. He's either completely full of shit and he threw it at her, since that's literally the only thing that burned.
I mean, there was some wood burning on the front door, but the front door didn't burn down. So that must have been where he threw it. Yeah,
she was probably standing right at the front door and he threw it right at her. Otherwise, how hard is it to throw it through a window? How big was the window where all the bags of clothes were?
Well, I don't think they actually had windows. I think she just had the bars. Because in Mexico, a lot of people don't have windows. They just will have those security bars.
And then there's no actual glass behind it? So, but he's told you he was trying to throw it through the bars to hit the bags of clothes?
Yeah.
That sounds ridiculous.
I know.
Okay. Yeah. Crazy. Was it because it was probably a couple weeks later when you were still in hiding, we should say, when you saw your name in the paper?
No, it was a couple days later.
A couple days?
Yeah.
But you were in hiding.
Yeah.
At
his aunt's house. Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
Well, I was nervous. I was on edge. We wouldn't go anywhere except for when my daughter had to go to the hospital. I don't know, just kind of scary, because you don't know what's going to happen. And my name was in the newspaper. Am I going to get in trouble? Am I going to get arrested too? And oh my gosh. And then I had all of the kids and I was pregnant and I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, because up to this point, it should be pointed out that if you, clearly, if you go back as long as I can remember, as you can remember, you've always been a little bit on the edge of being a law-abiding citizen. A lot of it not by choice, but when you're in the cult, most of the people are illegal. They came over the border illegally, so there's immediately everyone has broken the law.
Well, and they're still continuing to have van loads of immigrants from the border that they're coordinating.
But generally speaking, people put that in a different category. It's a little bit different category than a criminal.
Yeah.
So you made the transition. Now, so there was obviously some illegal activity, sexual abuse, and some other things going on in the cult that was behind closed doors. But generally speaking, they weren't robbing anyone. They weren't murdering anyone right in front of you. It was illegals in the house, but you were serving God, and I do that with air quotes, and you were getting donations, and you were proselyting and talking about things. So it was generally a law-abiding community.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, right?
Except for women. Men and their desires.
Yeah. But that's behind closed doors, right?
Yes.
But up front. Yeah. So when you went this is an interesting transition that you went through from being a generally law-abiding person to hanging out, being married to, and being the Bonnie to a Clyde on the run, Did that happen gradually with just his complete lack of morals and his it seemed like he didn't care what laws he broke as long as he didn't get caught.
Yeah.
That was was it kind of a gradual thing that started showing more and more the longer you were down there? And you're oh, this motherfucker doesn't really care about anybody. He doesn't care if he's breaking the law as long as he gets away with it.
Yeah, that was when it became really evident,
Yeah.
All the crazy stuff that was going on. And it was just crazy, man. All the legal stuff and his lawyer that he was always paying money to do shady shit for him. And oh my gosh.
It's interesting how he was able to frame the corruption of the Mexican government and his ex-wife and all these other things where it really must have felt like it was you and him against the world. Like he was like, look at all these people. And I'm sure he came up with one bullshit excuse after another about how it was, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's how narcissists do it. It's either there's one of two things. Okay. Narcissists either are the hero of their story or they're the victim of their story. And it goes back and forth. If they do something great and something works out, they're the hero. They're the reason why this happened. We escaped. I saved your life. Not I put you in danger by being a psychopath. Like, we're not going to talk about that part. We're just going to focus on, look how I saved your life and it worked out. We're back in Oregon now. I'm the hero of this story. That's how they do it. They don't, or, when they're down in Mexico and there's all this corruption going on and you're having to pay lawyers and you're having to hide from the Mexican, Mexican government and the police. They're like, oh, this is bullcrap. She took my money. My ex-wife took all my money and it's mine and she stole it. And she's, it's always the victim.
Yeah.
Did you see? I mean, it seems pretty clear.
Yeah.
That that's how it was.
That seemed to be the case.
And then, the other thing that happens when you're in that with someone like that is you have to justify things for your own survival.
Yeah.
I learned to do that in my own life too, where it's like, well, that was pretty crazy, but once I get him out of Mexico, I won't have to deal with crazy anymore. It's because of the circumstance. It's because of Mexico, right? You start telling yourself this narrative that it's not because he's crazy and I need to get away from him. It's a circumstance. Because they've gaslit you into believing that.
Yeah.
Right? They've just trained you like, oh, yeah, he is the victim. And when someone tells you they're the victim and everyone's out to get them for 5 years or for several years at least, and they point out all the reasons why, and they're very, very good at pointing out these reasons because they're manipulators and they, they say the right things. You start believing it.
Well, and a lot of it, he would play the victim in a lot of it, but it was pretty apparent that it was his own making. Like he can bitch and moan that he's the victim all he wants, but he's creating this chaos himself. Yeah.
And
he's his own tornado.
Is any of that hindsight? Because I always recognized it, but I was never. I mean, it's clear to see for any thinking, intelligent person. You're like, you did that yourself, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and I've been that way looking at that. But at the end of the day, what could I do about it? Like, you're never going to convince them of that. So it's kind of just a story you tell yourself in your head that someday I'm going to get away from this person.
Yeah, to cope and survive.
Right. You have to be like, okay, that was totally their own fault. They did that. They put themselves in that situation, but you can't say it to anyone because then it starts World War III. Yeah. Then they're going to blow up at you and you have to listen to this long thing about, who knows what.
Well, in my situation, with him, after I saw what he tried to do to his ex-wife, now I'm like...
You make yourself a target.
Well, and not only that, now, before it was just being controlled, manipulated by him and, all the control. But now you see that if you don't comply, there could be huge consequences. Like he could go to the extent of trying to kill you if you try to get away or, don't be obedient and do what he says or, try to take back power.
Yeah. You had an actual physical example of what happens when you cross him.
Yeah.
That's scary.
I know. That's why it took so long to know what to do, and how to get out,
Yeah.
I mean, I had to have DHS help me because I couldn't get myself out of it, and I was too afraid because I knew what he was capable of.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the ICE agent because I have a hunch, but I want to talk it through with you because I have a thought. We haven't really spelled it out, but there's that ICE agent who comes to Juan's rescue multiple times. He sets up your first husband, which we talked about, and we have the newspaper clippings. We've already shown his name.
Mm-hmm.
But so in that whole case, right? And then with his brother, helps him out, and then helps you guys get back from Mexico. So this is like 3 times. You've done an undercover operation with him. So
and then helps, get the brother rescued when he was a hostage.
When he was a hostage.
Yeah.
And bust him. So did that feel like Juan had federal protection? And did it make it scary for you thinking about leaving him? Because he had some kind of or
I don't know if it was for Juan or if it was because I helped them with the first investigation. And they got an indictment. So I don't know if it was just because they felt that they owe, I don't know. Maybe he thought that he owed it to me for, him getting an indictment. I don't know.
And that's kind of the way I saw it. It seemed to me like it's less like he's corrupt. Because you guys have to, and I know Adria kind of positioned it that way, corrupt federal agent. To me, every TV show and movie about ICE or about the DEA or about, the FBI or any of these agencies, you guys are little fish.
Yeah.
If you're talking about in a DEA perspective, when they're talking about the drugs, they don't give a crap about the guy on the street that's selling drugs. I mean, they'll roll them in, but they want them to be the informant because they want to go up the chain until they can get to the head guy. So I feel like this ICE agent was looking at you guys like the little fish. You guys are the lowest on a coyote run operation, right? Yeah. Or maybe you can get who the main coyote is or his boss. They're looking to get some bigger fish because ultimately that shuts down a whole operation.
Yeah, but the whole issue with this, though, is, he may have not been a corrupt immigration officer, but he still let him back in the country illegally.
He let him in, but ultimately he was your husband. You're an American citizen with children. So in his terms, and he may have not had access to, I don't think that he would have even, and obviously he had 30 seconds on the phone to make a decision to let you in or not. It's not like he had like a week to research whether or not Juan was wanted by the federales.
Yeah.
And I don't think and the systems certainly do not connect. They would have to go searching for it, specifically probably in what town.
Probably.
Right? It's not a whole wide Mexico warrant, is it? Every different district down there has their own thing, don't they?
It was in more than one district.
Okay. But he'd have to know probably what to look for in the first place.
Yeah.
And how many Juan Espinosas are down in Mexico? Can we be honest?
Probably a ton.
Thousands, probably. Yeah. So I don't fault him for that, because if you didn't tell him, oh, by the way, Juan's wanted down in Mexico for attempted murder, how would he have known that? So I don't fault him for letting you and him back in the country. Later on, we get to the part where, because at that point he wasn't really wanted for anything in the States, right? He still had his work visa. His work visa was valid.
No, it was expired.
So when they did let him back in with an expired work visa, did he have to go get another one?
No, because it wasn't renewable.
Did the ICE agent know it was expired?
Mm-hmm.
What did they say about that?
The only way to there was no way to renew it because it's through CI.
But you're married.
Well, then you have to go through the citizenship or residency application and interview and all of that process, and we hadn't done that.
So if an illegal is married to an American citizen, don't they immediately become?
No, you have to do all the paperwork.
So there's paperwork that had to be, but you guys had been married less than a year at that point, right? Or right around a year?
Yeah, it probably was around a year.
Around a year?
Year and a half.
So did he say, hey, you need to get your paperwork done so he can get naturalized?
I mean, he probably suggested it at some point, but...
Okay. I mean, that would be a natural thing to do. He's got the hard part done. The hard part is finding a cute American wife to marry, right? Isn't that the hard part? Everything else is easy at that point.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I just wanted to talk through that because it there's different perspectives in looking at it. But if you're looking at someone from his perspective, he sees, oh, this is an American woman with her kids and her immigrant husband. They went down to Mexico and now they're getting stopped because his work visa ran out. But he's married to her, and they helped us out on a couple investigations. Put a few people away, got a few indictments. So it doesn't make it quite as jarring, I think, as we first kind of thought. You know what I mean? But anyway, it's interesting there. I think that the biggest problem that comes up later on, and we'll talk about this in specifics, is really when you start getting the DA involved after Juan loses his shit and starts being a psychopath to you and the kids.
Yeah.
When you have a sanctuary city with bullshit asshole judges that we're going to put on this screen and when their freaking faces, and the DA that does nothing and keeps giving these people bail. I don't know how many stories we have to hear about these people who are put on bail and then go murdering people. It was just the other day. I feel like I see one every week. And I feel like we as American citizens somehow need to hold these judges and these people accountable. And I feel like prison needs to happen. Like if you're a judge and the standard is for you to not let them out, but because there are standards for almost every crime. There's a standard like, okay, well, this is going to be, here's the standard, thing for this crime. Say you beat your wife or whatever. Well, there's a certain process for that if you do it. If you get out of jail or if you get out on bail and you skip bail, well, you don't get another bail. You already skipped the first one. You went to another country one time. Like, I feel like there's standards in the judicial system that every judge is aware of and can pull up like, hey, what's the standard sentencing for this? If they break that, I think they need to be disbarred. I think they need to be jailed and never serve again. Because this is what is causing the most damage in the country. And I'm not saying everybody needs to be put in jail, but when it's egregious like this, when they just keep letting these rapists and murderers out.
Yeah. And they continue harming people.
Yeah. Happens over and over again. Or they skip bail and then they come back and do more damage and then skip bail again and go down to Mexico and then come back. I mean, how many times does somebody have to do that?
Right?
It's crazy.
You think after they skipped, the first court case after skipping bail, like you think, judges would learn not to give them another bail because they're going to skip again. They're obviously a flight risk.
I mean, that's the definition of a flight risk. I don't know how much clearer or, I don't know what they're thinking either. Like, it's almost like they don't.
Are they just looking at the money part of it? Where does the bail money go?
You know what I think it is? I think instead of looking at humans as humans, like all humans as humans, like, look, you have an American citizen, you have somebody who's an immigrant. Generally speaking, there's no difference between the two as humans go. If you have 10% of Americans that are awful, horrible people and are probably going to be in jail, well, you know what? You're probably going to have at least 10% of immigrants who are the same way. And instead, what is happening is instead of looking at humans in an individual basis and going, okay, what is this person's history? I don't care if they're white, black, purple, green, whatever. I don't care if they're, a Mexican immigrant or an American citizen or from Venezuela or from Paraguay or wherever they're from. It doesn't, if you just look at the content of their character and how they act and what their history is, then that's how you should be judging. But I think what's happening is you have this, I feel sorry for them. I'm supposed to feel sorry for them because they come from a horrible situation and we're helping them out. But if they're MS-13 and they're in this country, they're not doing good things.
No.
They're not doing good things.
No.
And that's what I think is missing is they're like trying to make themselves feel better by being compassionate. And instead, they're not looking at each person individually without any kind of, compassion mask or a bias. So that's what I think is happening in a lot of these sanctuary cities and a lot of these situations with these judges is they're putting on this mask of compassion
For the minority.
For the minority and for their situation and for the country that they come from that's horrible or whatever. But they're not putting it on like, okay, well, you wouldn't let a white guy do this stuff.
Probably not.
I mean, or a black guy for sure.
Oh, definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't let another gang member that wasn't MS-13 that was in this country, like the Crips or something, you wouldn't let him get away with it. You'd throw the book at him. So why are you letting the Hispanic guy from over the border, get this compassion? That's what I feel like is going on in a lot of these cases, and certainly in Juan's case, because there's no excuse for letting him out that last time. None.
No. Especially when they caught him coming across the border illegally.
Yeah.
Again.
Well,
like he skipped bail.
In California, right? Or was it Arizona?
Arizona.
So Arizona was smart enough to go, hey, checked his record and indicted him or sent him to Oregon to be tried.
Uh-huh.
That's why they sent him.
Yeah.
They didn't, otherwise they would have just let him go back over the border, right?
Yep.
Man, Arizona must have been pissed when they found out that they just let him go. I would have been.
Yeah.
Like, think about the money involved in that too.
I know.
Shipping him from Arizona all the way up to Oregon, and then the Oregons just go, okay, bye. See you later.
Yeah, you skipped your first, $500,000 bail.
No, wait, it's worse than that. He was trying to get back to Oregon.
Yeah.
So they literally gave him a free trip from the Arizona southern border to Oregon for free.
Uh-huh.
Holy shit. That's at least a couple $100 in gas if you have a car. If you don't have a car, it's going to be $150 in bus fare.
Yeah, I don't know.
And he got shipped there for free. Oh, wasn't that nice of Arizona?
Right?
That's freaking nuts. Wow. Oh my goodness. Well, this was episode 17. We got into some crazy stuff, some fun talking. It's always fun talking to you, though.
I mean, it always is. We're always entertained.
We are.
Have too much fun.
It seemed to be. So that was for episodes 11, 12, and 13. And we're going to do another one for 14, 15, and 16. And then we're going to come back possibly with some more details about that last kind of the tail end of Juan's court cases and his whole fiasco between immigration, between, all of his law breaking that he went on with, towards the end, coming back and being released again. And we'll go over some of the more specifics. But this next time we're going to go over the really the later part of your relationship with Juan, the end of the marriage and stuff.
Okay.
So.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.